The towel slipped from my hands, but I didn't flinch. Her laugh, dry, hollow, bouncing off the laundry room tiles, clung to the air like mildew. "You're lucky I even let you touch me." That's what she said. Like decades of providing, fixing her messes, and paying off her shopping sprees were some pathetic charity I should be grateful for. She turned, humming, tossing her blouse into the dryer like nothing had happened. I just watched her. Not angry, not sad, something quieter, sharper. I folded the last t-shirt, the old State Fair one from before she got veneers, before her Pilates instructor with the ridiculous name, before she stopped asking how my day was. I set it neatly on the stack and walked out. In the hallway, her phone buzzed. Then came that giggle, the one that used to be for me. Another message from whoever she thought was her escape hatch. Passing the mirror, I caught my reflection. Wrinkled, maybe slower than I was at 40, sure. But I built machines that carved titanium to half a hair's width. I wasn't some desperate fool hoping for scraps of affection. And placeholders like me? We don't argue. We execute. Downstairs, I opened my office drawer. The one I hadn't touched since I'd accidentally synced her phone to the family iPad 6 months ago. Inside was a small oak box I'd carved after retirement, meant for cufflinks. Now, it would hold something else. I opened it. Empty. Not for long. Firing up the laptop, I pulled up the folder I'd been curating, quietly, methodically, for months. First, the emails. A realtor friend named Celeste copying her on fun weekend plans in Ridge Hill. Dates that just happened to match her so-called training retreats. One even had a rental car receipt with a second driver's name. Not mine. Then the texts. Synced from her phone without her noticing. "Can't wait to see you outside the sheets for once LOL," she'd written. He replied with a shirtless bathroom selfie from the Burstone Hotel. Same wallpaper. Same lavender in desperation smell I remembered from our last weekend there. She thought I was slow. "You move like you're buffering," she once joked to friends. They laughed. I smiled, because slowness isn't weakness. It's precision. By midnight, she was asleep upstairs, tablet sliding off her chest, some real estate podcasts still droning. I stayed in the office. Lamp on. Printer humming. One screenshot. One receipt. One smug little message at a time, all sliding neatly into the folder I'd labeled June Justice. The oak box stayed open beside me. Empty still. Not for long. The next morning, she floated into the kitchen in yoga pants and a messy bun, humming something from the early 2000s like it was still her decade. "Morning," she said, reaching for her mug. "You're up early." "Couldn't sleep," I replied, flipping a pancake for myself. I didn't offer her one. She noticed. Her eyes flicked to the oak box on the counter. I'd put it there on purpose, polished and open, looking like a harmless trinket. "What's that?" she asked casually. "A project," I said. Then I smiled, not the friendly kind. The kind that makes people wonder what you know. She didn't press, just sipped her coffee, scrolling through her phone. But I caught the quick glance she gave me over the rim of her mug. Suspicion. Good. Let it germinate. By mid-afternoon, she texted me. "Going to an extra Pilates session. Don't wait up." I didn't reply. Instead, I called Ryan, my old colleague from the aerospace days. Ryan's not the type to ask questions, just the type to pull favors. "Still have that contact in hotel security?" I asked. "Which one?" "The Burstone." He laughed. "You're finally using that?" "About time." An hour later, a secure link hit my inbox. Grainy black and white footage, time-stamped 2 nights ago. Her, in the Burstone lobby, laughing at something Mr. Contractor said as he carried both their bags. That was the first time I let myself really smile in weeks. Because now, it wasn't just suspicion. It was an archive. That night, she came home late, smelling like citrus body wash she didn't own. "How was Pilates?" I asked from the couch. She blinked, a microsecond too long. "Sweaty." "Must be," I said, turning back to the TV. My tone told her I wasn't asking. She didn't know it yet, but I just planted something in her mind. The first seed of doubt about whether she was still the one writing the script. The box upstairs? Still empty. But not for long. 3 days later, she slipped. Not a big mistake, not the kind that detonates everything, but enough to show me the thread I could start pulling. It was Saturday morning. She had her open house routine on, blazer, fitted jeans, heels she only wore for strangers. I was at the kitchen table, pretending to sort mail. She breezed in, phone glued to her ear, voice syrupy. "Yeah, I can meet you in 20. Yeah, The corner suite's perfect. She froze mid-sentence when she saw me watching. The smile faltered, and for a second, the mask slipped. Gotta go, she said into the phone, then slipped it into her purse like it had burned her hand. Who was that? I asked lightly. Client, she said too quickly. What's their name? Her eyes narrowed. Why? Small talk, I shrugged. You know me, just trying to be sociable. She muttered a name I'd never heard before, Ron Marks, and left before I could ask more. By noon, I had Ron Marks in 3 different search engines. Nothing. No listings, no licenses, no LinkedIn. My guess? Ron was about 6 feet 1 inch, handy with a power drill, and had a habit of meeting her in the Burstone lobby. I decided to give her rope. That night, I mentioned offhand that I'd be working late for the next week. She didn't hide her relief. Finally, she said with a grin. Don't overdo it, old man. Old man. Sure. I'd remember that one. I spent those evenings not at work, but mapping her movements. Credit card pings. Parking receipts. Even her step counter on the Family Health app, she forgot we both had access to. Monday, Pilates. Tuesday, Pilates. Wednesday, Pilates again, except the app said she climbed exactly 7 flights of stairs at 8:13 p.m. That's the Burstone's elevator bank. The next morning, I put a single Burstone keycard in the oak box. My first piece. The thing about betrayal is it never happens in a vacuum. There's always a supporting cast. Sometimes they're active co-conspirators. Sometimes they're just the kind of friends who mistake silence for loyalty. My wife's circle was full of both. Her closest 3, her girls, as she called them, were perfect examples. Celeste, realtor, always accidentally liking the contractor's Instagram posts. Marcy, Pilates buddy, human alibi factory. And Kim, the listener, the shoulder, the one who'd never pick sides while picking sides. I didn't need all 3. Just one with a big enough mouth and a small enough spine. That was Celeste. I started with a simple text. Hey Celeste, could use your advice. Thinking about surprising Vanessa with a weekend getaway. Got any hotel recommendations she's liked in the past? The bait was perfect, flattery wrapped in casual conversation. Celeste replied in less than a minute. Oh, that's sweet. Well, she loved Ridge Hill last month, and she's a fan of the Burstone. I think she's been there twice this year already. Twice? Sure. And I'd bet my pension she wasn't a rewards member under our account. I thanked her, made some joke about how I'd never be able to afford her taste, and left it there. Celeste was a professional talker. Give her a topic and she'll keep bringing it up just to prove she's in the know. By the end of the week, she'd sent me 2 more ideas. One of them an all-inclusive package that just happened to have the same dates as Vanessa's real estate conference in May. The net was tightening, and she didn't even realize it. Meanwhile, at home, I let the silence do its work. People think confrontation is the way to rattle someone. Not always. Sometimes it's the opposite. No questions, no accusations, no change in routine. Just you watching. Thursday night, she came home late. Again, I was at my desk, sorting through the day's files. All labeled, backed up, and duplicated 3 ways. She stepped into the doorway, leaning against the frame like she was deciding whether to be affectionate or distant. You're quiet lately, she said. I shrugged. Lot on my mind. Work, among other things. She tried to read me, but I'd been in boardrooms with people worth billions. I know how to keep a face blank. She eventually wandered off, muttering something about how I used to talk more. The irony nearly made me laugh. By Friday, my informant network had grown. Not intentionally, at first. See, one thing about living in the same neighborhood for over a decade, people notice changes. And apparently, Vanessa's Pilates wardrobe upgrade hadn't gone unnoticed. I was grabbing coffee at the corner shop when old Mrs. Kemp, 78, half-deaf, and sharper than a scalpel, tapped me on the arm. Your wife's been looking fancy lately, she said, raising an eyebrow. Oh, I played along. Saw her get into a black SUV last Wednesday. Not yours. Young fella driving. Handsome. You'd like him if he wasn't busy stealing your wife. She said it like she was talking about the weather. Then she went back to her crossword. That's the thing about small-town gossip. It's free, accurate, and requires no subpoena. Saturday morning, I made my next move. I set my phone on the counter, hit record, and asked Vanessa a casual question while she made coffee. What's your schedule looking like this week? She rattled off the usual showings, client lunches, One late-night Pilates session with zero hesitation. Smooth, polished, practiced. Then I asked, "That's at the studio across town, right?" "Yeah," she said without missing a beat. I smiled inwardly, because 20 minutes earlier, I'd called that very studio, pretending to book a trial session for a friend. Their receptionist cheerfully told me they were closed for renovations until next month. Her voice was now neatly cataloged in my growing archive of lies. By Sunday, the oak box had 3 items. The Burstone keycard, a printed still frame from the hotel security footage, the USB stick with her Pilates confession. But the box wasn't just a collection. It was a countdown. Each piece brought me closer to the moment she'd realize I wasn't the man she thought she could outplay. The real beauty of all this. She thought she was still in control. That evening, she walked into the living room with a glass of wine, curling up on the couch beside me like we were still the couple in our wedding photos. She rested her head on my shoulder, scrolling through her phone. "Love you," she said absently. "Love you too," I replied. And I meant it. Not for her, but for the fact that every word she spoke now was either data or confirmation. Later that night, while she was in the shower, her phone lit up on the nightstand. Contractor guy's name flashed across the screen, just his first name, but I knew. She'd saved it without an emoji, without a last name, like that made it invisible. I picked it up, turned it over in my hand. Thought about unlocking it, but no. Timing is everything. A premature reveal would ruin the endgame. Instead, I took a single photo of the screen, the incoming message notification perfectly visible. "Can't wait for Tuesday." Same room. The file went straight to the USB stick. No drama. Just another nail in the coffin she didn't know she was building. By midnight, I had my plan mapped out to the hour. Step 1. Tighten the noose by feeding just enough doubt into her circle so they'd start slipping up. Step 2. Secure every piece of financial and legal leverage before she even smelled smoke. Step 3. Set the stage for the kind of finale no one sees coming. Not her, not him, not even the friends who thought they were safe on the sidelines. I closed the oak box and placed it back in the drawer. Still space left inside. Enough for the piece de resistance. And as I climbed into bed beside her, she shifted in her sleep, murmuring something I couldn't make out. Probably dreaming about him. I smiled in the dark, because while she dreamed about her next lie, I was wide awake, scripting her last chapter. Some men throw tantrums when they find out their wife's cheating. Others drink, scream, or go full social media tell-all. Me? I prefer scalpels over sledgehammers. And it was time to start making the first cuts, quiet, clean, and deep enough that she wouldn't even know she was bleeding until the floor was slippery. Monday morning, she left for client showings in a crisp white blouse I'd never seen before. I waved from the doorway, coffee in hand, like the dutiful husband. The moment her SUV turned the corner, I shut the door and headed straight for the office. First order of business, the joint accounts. When we'd first married, I put my name on everything: savings, checking, investments. Over the years, we built trust. Or rather, I built trust. She just built convenience. She'd never bothered to learn which account paid which bill or where the investment dividends went. Now, that worked in my favor. My lawyer, Sandra, had already set the dominoes in place weeks earlier, back when my gut first started whispering. She's the type who believes in over-preparation. I told her, if this ever happens, I want to be able to pull the ripcord and have everything land exactly where I need it. She'd smiled. That means we start yesterday. Step 1. Create a new account in my name only, different bank, no digital link to the joint accounts, and a passphrase so long it looked like a Wi-Fi password on steroids. Step 2. Redirect all direct deposits. My pension, my consulting checks, even the small trickle from my patents, all flowing into the new account by Wednesday. Step 3. Lock down the investment portfolio. Not by moving it. That would tip her off, but by freezing the ability to withdraw or liquidate without my personal in-branch signature. It took less than an hour. The beauty of being methodical for a living is that these crisis tasks feel like just another Tuesday. By the time she texted me mid-morning, "Can you transfer $500? My card's being weird." I already had my reply ready. Of course. Use the credit card in the meantime. I'll look at it tonight. She wouldn't notice that the $500 came from my account, not the joint one, and that the joint balance was stagnant. Around lunch, I started on the utilities. See, Her name was only on the ones she insisted she handled: Wi-Fi, her cell phone, streaming subscriptions. My name was on the house, the water, the electric, the insurance. A few quiet clicks later, her cell phone account was flagged for paper statements only, mailed to my office. Same for her precious streaming services. Nothing like intercepting the monthly bill that shows who's been logging in from the Burstone's IP address. The final stroke that day was subtle. Deliciously subtle. We had a shared credit card. High limit. Good rewards. Perfect for household purchases. I left it active but changed the limit to just enough to cover groceries and gas. Nothing else. She wouldn't find out until she tried to book something bigger. Maybe a surprise getaway with Mr. Contractor. Maybe a few rounds of overpriced cocktails. Either way, it'd be like watching a bird fly full speed into glass. That evening, she breezed in just before dinner, humming and smiling like she'd sold the Taj Mahal. "Busy day?" she asked, hanging her blazer on the chair. "Productive," I said, setting the table. "Good. I'm thinking of taking a little weekend trip next month." "Girls thing. Celeste knows a great place." I looked at her like I was hearing about it for the first time. "Sounds fun. You'll have to show me the details." She smiled, but there was a flicker in her eyes, something guarded. She wasn't going to show me anything, which was fine. I already knew where she was going. The next morning, I met Ryan for coffee. Not because I needed more hotel footage. I had plenty, but because I wanted to plant a seed. "You ever notice," I said, stirring my drink slowly, "how some people get really reckless when they think no one's watching?" Ryan smirked. "Your wife?" I didn't answer directly. Just let the question hang in the air. The thing about Ryan? He's connected. Every word I say to him ends up in someone else's ear by dinner. And I wanted Vanessa's little circle buzzing with uncertainty. By the time she got home that night, she was quieter. No gushing about her day. No casual shoulder rubs. Just watchfulness. Wednesday was my favorite day of the week. I spent the morning with my accountant, a man so dry he could desiccate a rainforest. We reviewed the education fund, the joint savings, even the emergency account we'd set up after her knee surgery years ago. "All within your control now," he said, sliding the signed forms back to me. "She can't touch a dime without your consent." Music to my ears. That evening, she finally hit the glass. I was in the kitchen when I heard her from the living room. "What the hell?" She was on the phone with her bank, pacing, her voice sharp. "No, that's impossible. I've had this card for years." "What do you mean the limit's been changed?" I kept my back to her, rinsing dishes, hiding my smile. After she hung up, she marched into the kitchen. "Did you change the limit on the Amex?" "Limit?" I frowned like I had no idea what she meant. "Why would I do that?" She stared at me, searching for a crack. I gave her none. That night, she tossed and turned beside me. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how close we were getting to the endgame. She still thought this was salvageable, that maybe she could gaslight me into thinking I was overreacting. But her footing was shrinking with every quiet cut I made. By Friday, the oak box had grown heavier. The Burstone keycard, a still frame from hotel security footage, the USB stick with her Pilates lie, the printed photo of her incoming text from contractor guy, a bank statement showing her card decline on a $1,200 hotel booking. I'd almost feel bad for her if I didn't remember every smirk, every brush off, every time she'd made me feel like I was the dead weight in her life. Almost. Saturday morning, I made her breakfast. French toast, strawberries, fresh coffee, the works. She eyed me suspiciously the whole time. "What's this for? Can a husband make his wife breakfast?" She didn't answer, just ate slowly, like the food might be laced. Halfway through the meal, I looked her in the eye and said, "You ever wonder how well people really know you?" She froze for just a second. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Just curious," I said, sipping my coffee. "Sometimes people think they can predict someone's next move. Sometimes they're wrong." She didn't finish her plate. That night, I opened the oak box one more time, ran my fingers over the polished lid, the brass hinges. It was nearly full, and soon, very soon, it would be time to open it in front of her and watch every last ounce of control drain from her face. Some people think the first confrontation is about throwing the cards on the table. They're wrong. The first confrontation is about setting the table. And I've been setting mine piece by piece for weeks. It started with an innocent dinner invitation. "Why don't we have everyone over Friday?" I suggested one morning while she was rushing through her makeup routine. Everyone, she asked, blending concealer like it owed her money. Yeah, your girls, some of my friends, maybe Ryan. It's been a while since we hosted. She hesitated, the first sign she knew something wasn't quite right. But she couldn't refuse without looking suspicious. Sure, she said finally. But you're cooking. Perfect. I'd always been the one manning the grill and keeping the drinks flowing, so no one would think twice about me staying in host mode all evening. By Friday night, the living room was a polite mix of wine glasses, polite laughter, and carefully managed small talk. Celeste and Marcy were there, both already 2 glasses deep. Ryan leaned against the counter in the kitchen, catching my eye with that "I know you're up to something" look. Vanessa flitted from group to group like the social butterfly she thinks she is. I made sure to stay just close enough to hear snippets of her conversations. And then Ron says, she laughed, catching herself mid-sentence when she noticed me nearby. Oh, nothing. Just a silly client story. Ron again. Funny how Ron always popped up when she was relaxed and not thinking about her script. Halfway through the evening, I stepped out to the garage. Not to get beer. The cooler inside was stocked, but to fetch the oak box. I didn't bring it out yet. No, this wasn't the moment to crack it open. But I wanted her to see it in my hands. Just enough to plant a splinter of curiosity or fear in her mind. When I came back in, Ryan raised an eyebrow. What's that? He asked loud enough for the nearest group to hear. Something I've been working on, I said, setting it down on the counter beside the charcuterie board. Vanessa looked over from across the room. Our eyes met for a second, and I watched her smile falter, just slightly, before she turned back to Celeste. After dessert, the night started to wind down. That's when I made my move. Before everyone heads out, I said, my voice just loud enough to hush the room. I want to show you something I've been putting together. Vanessa's wine glass paused midair. I didn't open the box. Not yet. Instead, I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. A single photo filled the screen, the still frame from the Burstone's lobby camera. Her, laughing at something the contractor said as he held their bags. I turned the phone toward her, but loud enough for everyone else to hear. I said, Babe, isn't this the weekend you were at that conference? She blinked, the kind of blink that says stalling for time. What is this, Logan? Are you? Just answer the question, I said, my tone still calm, almost bored. Her friends shifted uncomfortably. Ryan didn't move. I don't know where you got that, but it's from hotel security, I said, sliding the phone back into my pocket. Don't worry, there's more. But not tonight. Silence. The kind that changes the temperature in a room. Celeste cleared her throat and muttered something about having an early morning. Marcy followed. Within 5 minutes, the living room was empty except for me, Vanessa, and Ryan. Ryan shot me a look that said you're insane, but I'm here for it, and let himself out. Now it was just us. She slammed her wine glass on the counter. What the hell was that? You're humiliating me in front of my friends. I leaned against the counter, arms folded. Humiliation requires innocence. You're just upset the curtains starting to rise. She glared at me, but I could see her pulse racing in her neck. You think you've got me figured out, she said, her voice low, almost a growl. I don't think, I said. I know, and I know exactly how this ends. She turned on her heel and stormed down the hall. I didn't follow. Instead, I picked up the oak box and carried it back to the garage, placing it on the workbench under the glow of the old desk lamp. Inside now were the Burstone keycard, a still frame from the hotel footage, the USB stick with her Pilates lie, the printed photo of the text from contractor guy, the bank statement with her declined booking, a voice recording from earlier that night when Celeste, after her second glass, let slip that Vanessa never stays in town for client weekends anymore. The box was almost full, almost ready. Over the next week, the tension in the house was thick enough to cut. She stopped taking Pilates trips, not because she'd stopped seeing him, but because she was recalculating, trying to find where her cover had been blown. She started testing me with small jabs. Working late again? Is that your new hobby, staring at me? You've been different lately. I gave her nothing. My face stayed neutral, my routines unchanged. If she wanted a reaction, she'd have to dig for it. And the more she dug, the more she'd doubt herself. Thursday morning, she got a call while I was in the kitchen. Her voice dropped into that hushed tone I'd heard before. No, I can't right now, he's here. Yeah, I'll figure something out. When she hung up, I looked at her and asked, everything okay? She smiled, Too quickly. Just a client mix-up. Nothing important. I nodded slowly. Right. Nothing important. She didn't know I'd already set my phone to record the moment I heard her voice drop. That file went straight onto the USB stick. That Friday, I sat in the garage with the oak box in front of me, running my hand over the lid. Every piece was in place. But the final act wasn't just about revealing her lies. It was about revealing how small her world had become, how every exit she thought she had was already bricked over. The box wasn't just evidence. It was a mirror, and I was going to make her look. I closed the lid and whispered to the empty garage, one more week. One more week, and the stage would be set for the kind of ending she'd never see coming to BY Monday. Her moves were predictable. She'd leave late morning for showings, return mid-afternoon, spend the evening scrolling with that tiny smirk she didn't realize she wore when she was texting him. I'd already intercepted her route using the location history on her health app. Every time she showed a property, she happened to burn 340 to 360 calories, the same average she logged when climbing 7 flights at the Burstone. Tuesday night, I gave her one last chance to trip over herself. Thinking of heading to the mountains this weekend, I said casually. Just me, a little fishing. She lit up just enough for me to notice. Oh, nice. You should go. You need a break. Which was my confirmation. She wasn't just relieved, she was already calculating how to use my absence. What she didn't know, my fishing trip would be me, parked across the street from the Burstone with a telephoto lens and Ryan in the passenger seat. Saturday morning, I kissed her on the cheek and drove off in the truck. 20 minutes later, I was back in town, tucked into an unmarked sedan Ryan had borrowed from a buddy at the sheriff's department. At 2:17 p.m., she arrived, sunglasses, tote bag, hair freshly styled. Contractor guy was waiting outside. They didn't even bother with subtlety, straight inside, laughing, his hand low on her back. 2 hours later, they came down again, same clothes, different hair. Ryan filmed from the dash, narrating like a sports commentator. Hand on the waist. Oh, bold move, my man. Oh, and there's the goodbye kiss. I didn't laugh. I just kept the camera steady. That kiss was going to be the opening shot of the finale. Sunday night, I set the scene. Dinner at home. Candles, her favorite pasta, the oak box on the table like a centerpiece. She walked in, glanced at the box. What's this? Your weekend, I said simply. I opened the lid. Inside, the Burstone keycard. Still frames from hotel footage, multiple dates. The USB stick with her lies, texts, and call recordings. Bank statements showing her declined booking. Saturday's video, her and contractor guy in full HD. Her face drained of color. She reached for the box. I shut it. Not for you, I said. This is for my lawyer. He'll be filing tomorrow. She opened her mouth, closed it again. You won't get away with. I leaned forward. Vanessa, you're already gone. You just haven't realized it yet. Here's the part she never saw coming. I didn't just serve her divorce papers. I served him too. Turns out, Mr. Contractor was on probation from a prior fraud case, and his contract with the city required him to disclose any civil action against him. My lawyer filed a suit for alienation of affection, rare but legal in our state, with enough supporting evidence to make his probation officer sweat. By Wednesday, he'd cut off contact completely. By Friday, her so-called friends had stopped answering her calls. And by the end of the month, she'd moved into a one-bedroom on the edge of town, half her income going to legal fees. Me? I kept the house, the accounts, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing she lost more than she thought she could. The oak box, empty again, sitting on my shelf, waiting. Because if life has taught me anything, it's this: people like her never change. And I'll be ready the next time someone thinks I'm just a placeholder.